So, how many people have been in the room the entire day? Oh, wow. Okay, that is a lot. This was a long, jam-packed day. I gotta say, but I feel like this one, Jan, I mean, this was a great topic, and you ended up having great people in the room. So what I want to ask you is, we really need your participation on this, but what questions are still unanswered? Like, what do you need to know as we go forward? So mic runners are coming around with the mics. Remember to tell us who you are.
My name is Christine Meeker. I'm a transplant from Florida, Hurricane Irma survivor. I think what is most compelling to me that I have not heard anything here or in years in the past, and that is this. Long ago, you had the town gossip. Long ago, you knew your neighbors. You knew their names. You knew their professions. You watched what they did. You watched their house. We don't have civility anymore. Our society is now changing, and it's becoming technologically based. So it's like the Matrix. So those people who want friends, those people who want to be the first out of the box to share the info like the town gossip, they're doing it in a different medium. And I'd be really curious to know if anyone's done any demographic studies or psychographic on who are the sharers, what is the psychological trigger. Anyway, I could talk on and on, but it's really very interesting topic. So there I go.
Have you seen anything?
I mean, she's talking about the psychological background of it.
Yeah, like who, like what are the dynamics of this new, yeah.
Fake news sharers. Is it just ringing the doorbell, running away?
Well, some of it, I mean, we've discussed this throughout the day, and Kendra from the Library Science Department did talk about the psychological underpinnings, but the thing that we keep coming back to in all the studies that I read about fake news, a lot of it is confirmation bias. I mean, that's the word that just keeps popping up again, that people share what they want to believe. Some of it is just also being punked. I mean, some people just like to punk other people with fake stuff. But I would say today, take a look at Hollywood Reporter. Hollywood Reporter has a story today about two young guys living in some fancy building in Hollywood, apparently a building where Hollywood stars live, and writing fake news. And they were among the big promoters. I didn't know this. I didn't know about them before. They were among the big promoters of the Pizzagate thing. And they come and they consider themselves like alt media, like they're shaking the foundation of the establishment. They apparently come from the far left, but they're tweeting out these same crazy stories and creating their own fake news. What I really didn't like about the Hollywood Reporter story, sorry, I'm going off on a tangent here, I really, really quailed when I read the story because it is treating it like a celebrity profile. Like, oh, look, these rich, cute guys, this gay couple, they're business partners, they live in a building with celebrities, and celebrities, and I was like, what is the point of the story? It's not showing how dangerous and bad what they're doing is. And to that end, if you want to dig deeper on some of these people who are the makers of fake news, not only can you just Google search Macedonian teenagers and find out about the economic reasons, but you can listen to a wonderful piece that was done after the election by an NPR reporter. Is David still in the room? An NPR reporter who covers, whose name is escaping me now, and David would know it off the top of his head, but she covers technology and stuff, and she went around and essentially tracked down through some really amazing data journalism, was able to track down the guys who were behind a lot of the fake news that spread in the election and interviewed this guy at his front door. The Washington Post did a similar thing where they interviewed fake news makers. And a lot of them tend to be young men who are making between $10,000 and $30,000 a month in advertising, the penny ads from Google and Facebook. And the platforms have been trying to shut that down. But so their financial incentives, they're just kind of like, ha, 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 Beavis and Butthead type incentives. And there are, psychological incentives. So all of those things.
Yeah.
So can I say something? We have to distinguish between Macedonia and, because there's a Macedonia, Ohio right here.
Oh, I meant Macedonia, not in Greece. I meant the country Macedonia.
The country, yeah.
Sorry, yes, there is, of course, Macedonia, Greece. There's Macedonia in the Balkans. I'm talking about the Balkan country Macedonia. And I'm sorry, I didn't know
Not
about Macedonia, Ohio. I know, that's what I'm getting. I did not even know there was in Macedonia, Ohio, so I apologize, yes.
We stand
Macedonia,
corrected.
the Balkans.
Clarification. Okay, back of the room. And then the other mic runner, did you see the hand go up here? Okay.
I'm Doug Opplinger. I just retired as managing editor at the Beacon Journal, and I'm leading a statewide media collaborative trying to restore trust between media and the public. There was a question earlier today that we didn't address, and that was from someone who said, I'm just a citizen. What do you suggest I do to tell people that's fake news? And I think that's something that we're not taking seriously enough. This issue is dividing and angering people beyond belief. It's not just our problem. I facilitated a conversation of students over at Trumbull campus a few months ago, and there was this young lady, I think she was 20, who said, this was my first opportunity to vote for president, and I couldn't, because I couldn't go home and talk about who I voted for. This election has so divided my family, we called off the annual family reunion. I changed eye doctors because my doctor cannot see the difference between freaking fake news and real news. The public is just going nuts over this, and people don't want to be suckers. And when they find out or begin to figure out that they've been made suckers of, they get angry. And that's kind of what we're seeing grow in this country. So I think somehow as journalists, we have to keep in mind that the public is not only in there with us, they want to somehow figure out, how do we fix this? And we need to recruit them, be transparent. I heard that at the very beginning. I don't think I heard it again. Be transparent about how hard we work on the public's behalf, and let them feel like they're a part of us and we're a part of them. Somehow we've got to enlist the public in this, this fight. We can't do this ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, you said a lot right there. And I think, so first of all, when you are trying to have a conversation with somebody about fake news, the relationship is the most important, I think, predictor about how that conversation is going to turn out. And if you don't have a good relationship with somebody, you're probably not going to be able to have a conversation with them about their sharing of fake news or believing fake news. But the other thing that you said about, we almost need a PR campaign for journalism and the work that we do in journalism, because most people believe, and we have been very bad at explaining how we do things. We're getting better because people are demanding it of us. But when I was coming up as a young journalist, I was told that people don't want to see the sausage being made, right? They don't want to know how hard you work to get at this source. They just want to know what the information is. And I think the opposite is true. I think that they do want to know how hard. And oftentimes, I think some of the most successful stories are where you hear the reporter explaining, well, and I think they do this on Planet Money all the time really well. Well, first I went here, and then I went here, and then I talked to this person, and then I got a partial answer from this person. And they sort of reveal the process by which they came up with this very complicated information, and it makes you trust the information more. So I do think that we need a PR campaign as journalists, and nobody's going to do that for us, right? Like, we probably have to do that for ourselves.
Yeah, I echo what Kelly said, and I have a few comments to add on. One is that an underlying problem here is that people don't really understand what we do. And even more than that, very alarming, a couple of days ago, a survey came out showing that more than 40% of Americans don't know any of the freedoms in the First Amendment. And I say more than 40% because 37% answered that they could not name a single freedom guaranteed under the First Amendment. And then an additional 4 or 5% named things that weren't freedoms under the First Amendment. They named the right to bear arms, and they named life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. None of those are actually in it. So when I had tweeted out the 37%, someone very smartly tweeted back at me and said, well, if you look carefully at this bar graph, it's actually like 43% of people who don't know anything under the First Amendment. That's shocking. And it's sad that it's happening at the same time that the museum looks to be potentially going out of business. And for whatever you may think, whether you agree with Jack Schaefer and his criticisms of the museum, it is at least standing there as a monument to what the press does. And anyone I talk to from outside of the news profession who has gone there gets a real appreciation for what we do from being there. I agree. I think there needs to be a campaign. The problem is that a simultaneous campaign is going on from the White House trying to undermine and discredit absolutely everything we do. And I would say, having covered several presidents, every president tries to spin and put things in the way that is best for him. I mean, remember Bill Clinton saying it depends on what the meaning of the word is. You know, I was traveling with Bill Clinton in Asia when the whole Monica Lewinsky scandal broke. I mean, so everyone tries to spin, but there has never been a campaign like this to completely discredit the press, the credibility of the press entirely. Even Nixon didn't go this far in his campaign against the press. So I think, well, Kelly's absolutely right. We need to, as an industry, get up. Now, I love what you said about it's part of our role to rebuild trust with the community. And the work that's being done out there, the research on what rebuilds trust between media institutions and the community tends to be when that media institution is out there in the community. So this goes back to local news, the importance of local news, and how the death of local news is killing all of us, basically. And it's that people need to feel that that news organization is in their community, cares about them, and is doing stories that matter to them. So solutions journalism is one of the things that really tends to get people engaged with their news organization and invested and feeling like, hey, these people care about me, that's a legit news organization. So that's something that newsrooms have to be doing. This is going to be something that, if I can pitch my own conference, we're going to be having a Poynter Ethics conference on the Trump effect December 4th in DC, and one of the things we're going to talk about is what can we do to rebuild trust in the media. So I think your point is excellent, and I hope that everyone here is trying to do it in little ways, whether it's talking to their crazy uncles or you know, to debunk or whatever it is you're doing as news organizations to try to re-engage with the community.
All right, in the middle of the room here.
Oh, there it is, yes. You kind of answered a little bit there, because I was, one of the things that I was going to ask about is the power, if all, about podcasts. You know, I'm finding more and more that's where I get, you know, a lot of my news and whatnot, but I especially like The Daily from the New York Times, because, I mean, they have so many reporters, I have no idea who they are, and to hear what they go through, you know, on a daily basis to do what they do, I just feel a connection and trust, you know. So it's been a very educational experience for me to really understand what they do. But secondly, my view here today is, since I work at an area university, and of course I'm promoting and talking about science a lot. Oh, no, you know, colleges and universities are biased. You can't believe a single thing that comes out of a university, and that's been equally challenging too. So I don't know if there's really a question in there, but we almost, listening to this, it's been very helpful. Scientists almost need to educate people, you know, you have no idea what they do to prove something is wrong, you know.
Actually, you should have a conversation with Michelle, because I think that that's a classic example of where you need to do like a risk and threat assessment and figure out what your messaging strategy is. Science needs a messaging strategy, right? Like, and
it's not on Tom Hanks's T-shirt.
Yeah, and not on Tom Hanks' T-shirt. But it's true that scientists are horrible at talking to the public.
Well, and it's amazing because, you know, a lot of, you know, what I do is I take research, and of course I have to massage it as a PR rep to what will be a good soundbite for TV, you know, anchors and whatnot. And just how science is being reported in the news is
Well, a study
egregious.
just came out, I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday. I flagged it for our colleague who's going to be doing a science facts thing. You might have seen it, that showed that something like 40% of Americans, it's on my computer, don't believe the science news they read.
Oh, yeah. It's,
Well, and you know, part of that is because the journalism around science is particularly bad.
yeah, talk
Right?
about,
There's a lot
not
of
many.
there's a lot of bad science. There's a lot of junk science that gets a lot of coverage, and that's one of the reasons why we're having that. There's a fundamental gap between how journalism works and how science works. Is that journalism is iterative, and we like to make big discoveries and reveal them. And science, I mean, we did one of these conversations with science journalists, and one of the things that they talked about as a best practice is that no journalist should ever do a story on a single study, because there's no single study ever in the history of science that changes a scientific understanding of an issue. There never is. And yet, most of the stories that you see from journalists about science are about a single study that reveals X, Y, and Z, and most of them are bad because, and a lot of times, I mean, this is actually where PR professionals have a role to play, because a lot of those stories are pitched to the journalist by a PR professional who is bastardizing the science or covering up the flaws of the science, and the journalists don't know enough to get to those weak spots. So there's a lot of progress that can be made in there.
The best piece of science journalism I have read in a long time was in the September 11th issue of The New Yorker, and I recommend it to everybody. It's by Siddhartha Mukherjee, and it's about cancer and the recent studies on metastasis and what causes cancer to metastasize in some people's bodies and not in others. Wow. I mean, that's a piece of science journalism that is amazing and not based on one study. Written by a doctor also.
Right. All right, who's got the mic? Do we have one more comment? All right. Well, I hope you've all filled out your evaluations. I think I appreciate your incredible attention to this. This is this was compelling for me to be here all day, and I'm glad that you find it compelling too. I think that if we have a room full of people who aren't forced to be here for an entire day, but that you would voluntarily be here for an entire day, that alone gives me hope that we'll fix this problem. So, all right.
So now we're done. Please fill out your green evaluation forms. And while you're doing that, let me just say thank you to a bunch of people. First of all, Kelly and Indira. Kelly's been here 12 years. This is Indira's first visit. We'll have to absolutely make sure she comes back. All of our moderators, speakers, and guests who made trips to be here and worked with me over many, many months to put this together. Dean Reynolds and our interim director, Jeff Fruit. The CCI faculty, grad students, CCI ambassadors, PRSSA, thank you so much, volunteers and helpers. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about the Glitter Bomb Squad. So I work on this all year long, and then in May I get a group together and they come in the summer, I feed them donuts, and we put this together. It's a wonderful, wonderful committee. So I'd like to thank personally Christina Russ, Stephanie Smith, Sue Zake, Meow Lou, my ever-energetic grad student, Mike Need, Tracy Bauman, Bob Bauman, if you're listening, he's in Italy eating gelato. Ron Kirksey, Ron, thank you so much. I feel like I'm at the Oscars, right? Amanda Lou, Darlene, and everyone who could make today such a wonderful day. Thank you all very much, and have a nice day.